This week, we will try to understand the bizarre world of North Korea and the cult of personality behind the Kim family dynasty today. So what can you expect from this video? I will leave the details of the Korean War, Vietnam War, and the Cold War up to the assigned readings this week, so this video will only give you a brief window into the Kim dictatorship today and a short look at Vietnam and Laos. And I know you don't want a history lesson, but trust me, it's critical to understand a quick bit of background to understand why North Koreans believe what they do today. As you'll read in the textbook this week, the Cold War conflicts that include the Vietnam War and the Korean War created permanent divisions in Vietnam, Korea, and Asia that not only caused millions of deaths, but created chronic mistrust across Asia today for outside interference. Above all, the Cold War left North Koreans in particular with the bad taste of America as a predatory, manipulative invader. In North Korea and Vietnam, America earned the stereotype that its promises of spreading democracy and progress are merely bait to mask their true intentions of denying their country's sovereignty. This has been the running basis of North Korean anti-imperialist propaganda for over 50 years, and it continues to work rather well. The story is very different in Vietnam and Laos. Almost immediately after the U.S. Army withdrew in 1975, Laos, Vietnam, and Cambodia became communist dictatorships. Although Vietnam lost at least 1 million troops and at the very minimum 1 million civilians, it is still riddled with undetonated explosives and landmines from U.S. bombardment, and took decades to recover from territorial division, Vietnam successfully unified under the iron hand of the Communist Party, which remains the only party to this day. But after a decade of isolation and near bankruptcy, Vietnam took China's route and liberalized its economy under the Doi Moi program to welcome outside investment and development projects. This has made Vietnam one of the fastest growing economies in the world for decades and a key player in the Asian market as a whole. Despite its success, Vietnam remains a communist dictatorship with a very poor human rights record, next to no academic and media freedom, and indefinite detention. Like China, it has made no effort to liberalize its political system. At the very least, thousands of government employees police what little social media exists in Vietnam, and human rights groups say that Vietnam commits political prisoners to forced labor like China and North Korea do. But in the end, most Vietnamese are reluctant to challenge the system because they prefer success, growth, and stability over the civil rights that we prefer in the West. In Laos, the country was rocked by a civil war for over a decade between Vietnamese, Chinese, Cambodian, and American-backed militias until the Laotian monarchy was overthrown by the communist Pathet Lao as soon as the U.S. Army withdrew in 1975. Like Vietnam, the Communists remain the only party by law and have an iron grip on all media, education, and business activity in Laos. But like Vietnam, Laos has slowly liberalized its economy for outside investment, although much more slowly than Vietnam has. But also like Vietnam and China, Laos has by no means liberalized its dictatorship. This has given Laos one of the world's fastest growth rates, but the country continues to struggle with crippling poverty, corruption, and among the highest number of undetonated landmines in the world. Its capital, Vientiane, was recently called the world's human trafficking capital due to corruption and wealthy tourists from abroad. and Laos is now a major hub for illegal ivory smuggling to China after Beijing banned importing ivory after 2018. Laos derives most of its economic output through government-run corporations like hydroelectric dam projects along the Mekong River, selling electricity to wealthier Thailand and Vietnam to fuel their larger economies. Moving on, unlike Laos and Vietnam, the Korean peninsula has never recovered from divisions caused by the Cold War. The Korean War split Koreans between the US-backed Republic of Korea in the south and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea in the north, backed by Moscow and Beijing. Very little has changed ever since then, and the two Koreas are technically still at war, leaving the largest military buildup in modern history on both sides of the demilitarized zone. While both Koreas, at least officially, aspire for a reunified Korea, both Koreas still reject each other as illegitimate occupation regimes propped up by foreign armies. Outsiders often joke that North Korea is in the Stone Age next to rich South Korea, but this has not always been the case. North and South were technically at economic parity until the 1970s, while South Korea struggled under constant military coups that scared off outside investment. Only after 1980 did South Korea become the powerhouse it is today, that has even surpassed Japan in terms of growth and public debt. However, if North Korea admits this at all, they would say that these are just lures that American imperialists use to distract South Koreans from their enslavement. North Korea, on the other hand, took a very different turn. Funded by the Soviets and China, North Korea rallied under Kim Il-sung and achieved high literacy, rapid industrialization, and a disciplined army incredibly quickly. But Kim Il-sung turned it into one of the most authoritarian regimes in the world. And after Kim was caught orchestrating numerous terrorist attacks abroad, North Korea also became one of the most isolated economies. North Korea became dependent on the Soviet Union, and the Kims made no effort to diversify the economy to make it less vulnerable. After the Soviet collapse in 1991, North Korea suffered immediate bankruptcy and famine that the UN says killed at least 1 million civilians. Medical studies on refugees claim that the entire generation of North Korean children is smaller due to habitual malnourishment. But to this day, Kim Il-sung is venerated as a nearly godlike eternal president. At eternal functions, a chair is left empty to honor him for keeping the North as the only free half of Korea. After Kim Il-sung died, his son Kim Jong-il completely remodeled North Korea's national identity to keep the same regime in power, against all doubt. Through masterful propaganda, Kim Jong-il invented a new national religion called Juche, or ethnic self-reliance, that justified the misery they were struggling to endure. Communism was abandoned. Juche taught North Koreans that they did not need to liberalize to succeed. North Koreans, as the cleanest and purest race, can do it on their own. Kim Jong-il enforced Songun, extreme militaristic nationalism with propaganda that all of these problems were caused by American imperialism. Nothing was the fault of the Kim family. To prepare for America's coming invasion, every segment of society, education, and media must be in 100% conformity with Kim Jong-il, backed up by the world's largest conscript army. By 2000, North Korea even had its own nuclear weapons program. It is crazy critical to understand that while the outside world sees North Korea as a warmongering nuclear villain, North Korea sees everything it does as self-defense against American barbarism. For these reasons, every bizarre restriction that North Korea imposes on its citizens is justified as a safety precaution to keep the nation free. After Kim Jong-il died in 2011, his mysterious son Kim Jong-un took over the world's most centralized dictatorship. The West knew nothing about him, not even his age, and certainly not his intentions. It is under the young Kim Jong-un that North Korea has become so aggressive. Kim executed every threat to his power, and he executed his powerful uncle in public with an anti-aircraft gun, and almost certainly hired 2 women to assassinate his brother in Singapore. While the country previously stopped its nuclear program under his father in the face of outside pressure, Kim Jong-un shocked the world with several surprise nuclear explosions. Kim Jong-un took this a step further by developing missile technology that can likely reach California. He repeatedly threatened the U.S. with full-scale nuclear war, shut down the only diplomatic phone line between the 2 Koreas, and repeatedly closed down the only diplomatic free trade zone, Kaesong, to prepare for war. It is also under Kim Jong-un that the personality cult assumed its bizarre, godlike proportions it has now, as you'll see in the readings this week. And as you'll see in the readings, North Korea has become dictator's Disneyland, with fake cities, abundant supermarkets that are often empty when workers try to exchange their rations, and the world's largest but almost empty hotel. And a propaganda apparatus that makes North Koreans believe that they are the happiest in the world while Americans are starving to death. So what are we doing about it? The West realizes that a military solution would be a human catastrophe because their brainwashed, dedicated million-man army would not give up any easier than Vietnam did in the Vietnam War. So all the West has done is embargo and sanctions to starve out the economy, hoping that North Koreans would rise up and overthrow their own government. This has failed miserably, as it did in Cuba and Iran. North Korea has become so unpredictable that even China, its only major ally, has now sanctioned the country. But nothing has changed. So where are we today? By sheer surprise, Kim Jong-un and President Trump have begun peace summits for the first time since Kim Jong-il. When you read about the peace summits, I want you to consider how each leader is using this for his own gain. Trump touts it as proof that his aggressive foreign policy has made North Korea desperate. But North Korean propaganda claims that it is Kim Jong-un who is the peacemaker against American imperialism, just as before. And China and South Korea, of course, have their own interests I'd like you to consider. So this week, please keep an open mind, suspend your judgments, and try to understand this bizarre country on its own terms. If we just dismiss North Korea as crazy, the world will remain locked in perpetual conflict as it has since 1950.